Hi guys, how are you? Today I'm here with a great artist, one of the best watercolor makers. She made Beast of Burden, Wonder Woman through Amazon, Hellboy, Sandman, Scary Godmother, and more a lot of stuff that we comic book readers just love. I'm here with the great Jill Thompson. Lady Thompson, how are you?
I am very well. It's good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to have an interview. I hope that I can entertain you and give you all of the answers to all the questions you've ever needed to know.
That's perfect. Thank you for coming. So, Lady Thompson, the first question is always the same. Who are you?
Who am I? Wow. You mean I'm Jill Thompson. I am a comic book creator. I'm a watercolor artist. I am an art witch, art mom, lover of storytelling.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything.
That's perfect. And where did your interest for comics start? Where you realized that you would work with art someday?
I have always been interested in drawing comics. I can't say the one thing. Oh my goodness, sorry.
That's no problem.
That was my thing. I've always been interested in comics, and my very first love was Peanuts by Charles Schulz.
Yeah, nice.
So I went because I saw that in the newspaper when there were newspapers, and you got to see that on TV. That's what I first started to try and draw. Yeah. So my mom saw that I liked to do this, and I told her when I grew up, I was going to draw Snoopy. And nice. She told me, the only reason I get to see Snoopy is because someone already draws it. So if I wanted to draw something, I should draw my own character. Yeah. And I don't think she was actually encouraging me to draw comics. She was just telling me the reality of, you know, you see this because someone else made this up. Yeah. You can draw your own things. So I started to draw a character that looked very much like Snoopy. It was, if you can think about it, if you draw the capital letter B or Bay. Okay. So I drew that, and then I put a little ear on the top and a nose on the top and a tail on the bottom. And that was my character, and he was called B-Dog. And he mostly just tried to steal food from this old man and his wife, who he was the pet of. And I drew 4-panel comics of that premise over and over and over again.
That's really nice.
The first panel was always you know, the grandmother character was putting food in front of the grandpa character, and he had a fork and a knife like this, like, I'm gonna eat some food now. And then in the background, you would see, this is almost exactly the same setup, right? So in the background, you would see B-Dog, and he would see the food, and he would go, and then he would do something in the second panel, like throw a rock or make a noise, and the old man would look the other way, and the dog would steal the food. And then the fourth panel would be like the man chasing after the dog eating the food. And I did hundreds of those comics. The only thing that was different was the food that the old man ate. So it was technically the same thing over and over again.
It would be nice, really.
And then my
someday.
second, they don't exist. I recreated one of them in like my style now for a charity event, but nice. All of the other ones were just drawn on the back of notebook paper and things, and they all got thrown away when I was little. And then the next thing I fell in love with was Archie Comics.
Yeah, perfect.
So and I loved those because when I was growing up, there was a house having a sale down the street from me, and they were moving, so they were selling everything in their house, and they sold like a big box of old Archie comics. Yeah. And like they sold it to me for like $1 or $2, and I went home and I started becoming obsessed with 1950s Betty and Veronica. and Jughead. And that was the next thing. I started making up my own characters that looked like those characters, but with all the kids in my neighborhood grown up as teenagers.
That's really nice. I didn't know about the bee dog. I really want to read it. The bee, when I see you, I will want a sketch of bee dog. You know, now I just love this character.
Oh, it's just writing. Okay.
No, that's okay.
It's wow, it's the sketch I should do all the time. It's the easiest sketch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a bee.
Yeah, exactly. It would be perfect. So, and when you introduced yourself, you were talking about watercolor. So it's about this I want to talk, because what are the how can I say? Okay, you're very known by your watercolors. So when did you started to be interested in watercolor? You know, because it's a harder art. It's a harder kind of art. I see it like that. Maybe you don't.
Actually, I never started until I went to the American Academy of Art, which is an art school here in Chicago. It's the same art school Alex Ross has gone to.
Nice.
A lot of other famous, like actually sitting next to me is a book by one of my favorite illustrators, Haddon Sundblom, and this is just by accident. But if you're familiar with this Santa Claus, that's the Coca-Cola Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Haddon Sundblom is the man that made that up, and he was a graduate of my art school. So nice. At my art school, there were paintings of his hanging on the wall, and you know, just amazing gouache illustration, which I wish I could illustrate like, and oil painting and things like that. Up until I went to art school, I really never painted. Yeah. I mostly had access. Sometimes, like I was watching on PBS channel, there was a painter like oil painting with William Alexander, and he was like this old German or Austrian man who was the guy that Bob Ross took over from. Yeah. So he was an oil painter that had the magic fan brush, and he would paint the happy little trees, and he would, you know, use the almighty fan brush and all this kind of stuff. So I tried, like my parents got me some oil paints, and I tried to paint along with that. And I was very horrible at it because, you know, I don't know, oil painting, I still would love to learn how to oil paint because it's so thick. So I mostly worked with pencils or whatever things were laying around my parents' house, you know, Bic pens, some bad markers, pencils from school, all drawn on notebook paper. And it wasn't until I got to art school, or not art school, but high school, where we had an art class where my teacher, you know, I had access to more types of medium, but then still I was always drawing something that was a dry medium, charcoal, maybe just smudging, pencil drawings, things like that. I never painted, and I never used watercolor then. Yeah. But when I went to art school, in my fundamentals class, we had to paint still lifes, and we had to paint them in watercolor. And it was the first time I ever picked up that medium, and we watched our teacher do demonstration, and then we would have to set off one of the many sections of the room that had still life set up, you know, with like fruit and a vase and, you know, a different, like a light set on it so it would make shadows, all different objects. And our teacher told us it was very hard and that we would have to do it many times. And if we thought we did it right, and he would probably come around and tear up our drawing because it's not that easy. Yeah. So I'm sitting at the table and I'm starting to paint, and I think it's pretty easy actually. Start using it, like it just flowed out, and it was like I could understand, like it did what I wanted it to do, which was not like what oil painting did. Yeah. And so I finished what I thought was an excellent painting. But the teacher would walk around, and I remember what he said, and I was like, I don't want him to tear up this painting. Yeah. And it was just one color. Like when you first start learning watercolor, you only can use one color. So you're doing more of a value drawing than a full color painting. But that's how you learn to work the medium. So I had my dark blue color that I was using, and every time he would walk around the class, and he had these big kind of cowboy boots on, and he would make this clump as he was walking behind you, and I hear those boots, and suddenly they stopped behind me, and I started to sweat. And so I keep the paint, and I keep going back into the dark area. So it's like I'm painting, but I'm not doing anything extra on it. And I keep painting into the dark shadow part because I don't want to, I feel like I'm done, but if he knows I'm done, he's going to tear up my painting.
Yeah.
So he leans over to me, and in a very quiet voice, he said, "Put the brush down, Miss Thompson. You've got it." And walked away. And he didn't tear up my painting. And I turned that painting in for a grade, and I got a good grade on it. And that's when I thought, I think I'm going to keep doing this, because I like it. I get it. I just like innately understood it. And it does what I want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the most important part. It wasn't a constant struggle. I'm not saying that the paint always does what I want it to do.
Yeah.
And there are many times that I wish that it could, I could make it do something I've seen someone else do, and I don't know how they do it. But for the most part, I'm impatient.
Yeah.
It dries fast.
Yeah.
I can lift it up with water if I need to. I can add things extra to it. I can draw over it if I like. It's a medium that I thought really was suited. I like doing, very traditional paintings, but it works well for the type of comics that I draw, and
Yeah.
I like to mix them together.
Yeah, perfect. And you told that your teacher on high school showed some types to you, some little types. So what are the main types that you give to a person who wants to work with watercolor, to wants learn how make a good watercolor today?
Well, my tips for anyone that wants to learn how to use watercolor is not to start out with all the colors.
Yeah.
You have to learn the foundation of how to work the paint and how to do a good value painting. So you have to just use black and white, like an ink wash maybe,
Yeah.
or choose a very dark color, like a sepia, a dark brown, or a very indigo, dark blue, something that gives you the intensity of like being solid black, but then with your lightest light being the white of the paper. And that's how you learn how to use the medium. So it's like you're doing black and white photography for a long time before you switch lighting around and add color to it. Because the way I learned is you start off with one color, then you add another color to that. You have two colors, because obviously that gives you 3 colors in all their value ranges. So if it's a dark blue and a dark brown, you have both of those colors. So one is kind of warm, one is cool. But then when you mix those together, you have a third color to work with. And you can make some incredibly effective paintings that look almost like they're full color with just a very limited palette.
Okay.
But you have to take it slow. So that's my advice, is you take it slow. And once you learn how to manipulate the medium with that, then you can go crazy with it afterwards.
That's a perfect tip, because when I don't have nothing to do, I usually draw, because I like to draw, So once I bought one watercolor, and I made a beautiful painting, So I went to sleep, and then and it had a lot of colors on this painting. I went to sleep, and in the next day was just on paper sweating and wet and black on my table. So I was really sad, because my painting was beautiful. So if I had this tip on that time, I would be in and happier children, you know. Oh, but that's okay. That's just a little trauma, but that's okay. So, but also still talking about watercolor. You're a teacher of art, right? So I watched one master classes you made in Comic Con 2020 for Brazil. It was online and I loved it. So when did you start to teach and why did you decide to teach art?
Well, right now I'm going to be teaching with a different place in the fall. I think, you know, I didn't set out planning on teaching, but I have had so many people come up to me at conventions and ask me the same types of questions over and over. And I thought, like, well, if I was gonna, and it's sometimes it's, you know, about anatomy. I don't want to teach the fundamentals of drawing because I feel like that's an intensive study you have to do somewhere else, like to learn perspective, to learn color theory, to learn anatomy and all of that. Those are the things you already need to know before you start drawing comics. And I wanted to focus on the storytelling part. It's like, you know, how do you tell a good story? Or like, how do you tell the best story possible? So I have a type of curriculum that I've made up for certain projects that I feel helps you learn like all of the basic lessons of how to push yourself as a really good storyteller. Because comics is such a versatile medium, you know, in essence, you could tell, you know, like if you had to tell a biographical story, you could do it in one page, right? Just one small page that has 6 panels. You could focus on certain events in someone's life, boom, 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 and tell it. Or you could, you know, you could tell it in 3 pages, you know, it's a little longer. Or you could tell it in 1,000 pages and be incredibly detailed about it. So it's all about how you pace a story, and you choose all the camera angles, and you choose, you know, you have to dress the set, as it were, you know, with your background illustrations and location choices. It's very much like making a movie on paper, except you're doing all of the jobs for the most part.
I don't know who, I think when I interviewed Klaus Jensen, he said the same thing, you know, in a movie, you have one person to make each thing, to direct, to act, but in a comic, it's just one person to make all of these things. So it's harder thinking.
Yeah, I mean, and granted, we do break the jobs down to more than one person sometimes, where there's a writer, there's a penciler, there's an inker, there's a letterer, there's a colorist.
Yeah.
And that becomes a really good team.
Yeah,
but often, you know, as I like to do as much of the creation as I possibly can.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love to write my own stories and then illustrate them. I also like to letter them. Because I feel like lettering, I could talk for an hour about how awesome and important lettering is, and where you place it and why you place it, and the shape of the word balloon, and how it is, you know, the icing on the cake, you know, with the cake being all the art, and then the icing is, you know, you can make a mistake with it, right? You need the proper amount of icing that just complements the cake. We're like, oh, that's the most delicious cake. If you put up too much icing, it's too sweet, and that's too many word balloons. You know, it's like, I feel sometimes writers think they're writing for television, where people can talk constantly and it's not covering up the faces of the actors. But in comics, you have to be very judicious with what the characters are saying. So the art is showing you the action, and then the dialogue should be just the most important.
I watched in masterclass from Mark Waid sometime, and he said that the balloons have to in a panel you have to being three balloons, you know, and in each balloon 35 words, and this is perfect, you know.
Wow.
yeah, and he understand of this kind of stuff, you know. So I really appreciate it. So
Yeah, I always, whenever I'm drawing or penciling something, I always lightly indicate all the letters. Like I letter out for the most part, not every project. I mean, like, because there's only been 2 in my recent jobs that I'm thinking of that I haven't put all of the words. But I do that to make sure, like, one, because I want to place the word balloon based on where I have the art.
yeah,
So important things aren't covered up. But also I need to know how much space all that dialogue is going to take up.
yeah,
So I don't end up having someone else making a random choice on where to fit all of these things, you know, like all over
yeah,
the place.
yeah, I understand. And that's really interesting, right? This production part of the comic, it's very interesting. So and I have to talk about your career now. Just confirming one thing, you
Okay.
worked with Paris on when you started your career, don't you, with George Paris?
With George Perez, yes, he was my first. It's kind of amazing to jump in to technically what considered the big leagues of comics, you know, like working at DC or Marvel back in the day
Yeah,
with
yeah,
one of your childhood art heroes. You
yeah.
know, that was so incredibly intimidating, but also what a blessing,
Yeah,
because that was George Perez wrote scripts for himself.
yeah,
You know, so if you were reading your page description and you realize, like, wait a minute, like I've been reading for several pages and it's still not the next page.
yeah.
And then you go down and you start counting, like, how many panels did he say? It's like, there are 19 panels on this page. I would never be able to do now
Yeah,
what I did back then when I worked on Wonder Woman with him,
yeah,
because I maybe, you know, I force myself to do 9 panels sometimes, but mostly I like to keep things much smaller amount of panels.
yeah,
But George, you know, kind of forced you to work like him.
yeah.
And
That's nice. That's really nice.
that was I mean, it was a very good learning lesson.
Yeah, that's really nice. And in the interview in that time, he told something like he really enjoyed work with you. And I don't know if you remember, but in that time, how was, you know, hear that George Perry is one of the most important names of the comic books, told that really enjoyed work with you, you know?
Well, I mean, at the time, I did not speak with him while I was working
Yeah,
on there. I'm trying to think, you know, like he was working on several projects. He was
yeah,
writing Wonder Woman. He was drawing War of the Gods. He was also, I think, drawing something for Marvel,
yeah.
all at the same time. So
Yeah.
from what I heard, he pulled his telephone cord out of the wall, because you could do that back then when you had those like old phones, they were stuck with a
Yeah.
wire in the wall. He just unplugged it from the jack so he wouldn't get any incoming calls. And he was just working all the time. So I dealt with my editor, and then he would turn in more script, and I dealt with my editor. So I was always glad to work with him, but I never got a chance to talk with him really
Yeah.
at all until afterwards. And now, knowing from what you said that he has spoken nicely
Yeah.
about working with me, that's gonna make me feel awesome for the rest of the day.
Yeah. 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 You should be, feel awesome. That's really nice. And a few years ago, you made this Wonder Woman, the true
Yep,
Amazon. And
I have to get that copy. I need to have the Portuguese one.
yeah, that's a beautiful one. You came to Brazil in 2018, don't you? To a
I
Comic
have
Con?
I have been to Brazil for a Comic-Con. I've been uh to where was
2017?
I was in São Paulo. I'm trying to remember when. I've been to São Paulo, but I'm trying to think, was I on my way to someplace else?
Yeah, I just remember
But
that.
no, there. I've been there for a very short period of time.
Yeah, yeah. It was some CCXP, that is our Comic Con experience, you know. And I remember that they would publish this just in March, but the editorial in Brazil would publish this just in March of 1 year ago, you know, one year later that you, but as
Do
you
you
were
like?
coming, yeah, I really like it. So I will talk about this now, because this is a very different vision of Wonder Woman's origin. It's very nice, because she have a lot of origins, a lot of authors told it, but here it's just like children who grew up thinking, okay, I'm a princess, so we have all this impact on her mind. I really like it. So, and a few years ago you made this comic, and what this project that came from you, this project, okay, I don't know how to ask it, this project came for you, or you told DC that you would work with Wonder Woman more one time, or because here you have a total freedom, we can see as readers. So how was it?
Okay, so I think the question you're asking me is how was I able to do this project
Yeah,
from DC?
exactly,
Did they
exactly,
approach me,
exactly.
or did I come to them?
I don't
Well,
know how reformulate.
that's okay. I came to DC because I'd had an idea for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, nice.
Many times when people talk to me, they say, oh, you got to work on Wonder Woman. She must have been your favorite character,
yeah,
as a child. And no, she was not, actually. I liked X-Men. I liked Marvel Comics.
nice.
I liked, mutants were my jam. Kitty Pryde was my favorite, because when, I was like John Byrne gal, as far as like my art influence. So it was like John Byrne, X-Men, and George Perez Teen Titans were, my favorites when I was growing up. And when I was working on Wonder Woman, I really liked George's take on that character. I liked Greek mythology and everything. But my one criticism that I had as a young girl of Wonder Woman was like, I just thought she was too perfect.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't relate to her, which of course, since then I have been able to, like all of the Wonder Woman film. I thought, well, I guess that's the thing I was looking for when I was a kid, because she's kind of perfect there, but I am totally on board with it.
Yeah.
And the Grant Morrison and Yannick Paquette versions, going way back to all of the original source material, I really love. But for me, I found some, maybe it was just like a certain era of comics that I had seen. I would grab a Wonder Woman comic, maybe it was older, but I just thought, to me, it was boring. She was perfect, and I didn't understand it. And I had this kind of epiphany one time. I was like, well, if you were like, we see people like this, right? They're born super rich, they're born royal, they don't understand how anyone else lives, and they think that everybody else kind of lives like them. They don't understand the difference. I also was a very big fan of mythology and also fables and fairy tales. So there was the old fairy tale called The Prince and the Pauper, where there are like identical humans, that one is the prince and the other one is poor, and they switch places so they can see how the other one lives. So I mixed a little bit of both of these ideas together, because I thought, well, what would happen if there was a magical baby born on an island of nothing but doting aunties and grandmothers? Because there are no other children on the island. She's royal, and she'll end up spoiled, right? Because everyone will be like amazed. It's like, thank the gods that we have this beautiful baby to take care of, and everything she will do will seem like a treat. And she will also be imbued with these magic powers. It's like she needs something to make her learn what it's like to be like some of these other Amazons who, while they are exceptional and amazingly strong and mythological to the you know, the old world of men, she still doesn't, you know, like how could she relate to them? And I thought there has to be tragedy, because I also like opera, and I like, you know, like all of the old myths and old gods things, heroes quests, there's always a tragedy of some kind. So I think, well, the games that she would have to do, she's not the best Wonder Woman, there has to be a better one. And but she can't really comprehend that she wouldn't be the best one, and what, like, and then what would happen? Because to me, some of the best ways to find out or to write a story for yourself is to just say, and then what happens? And after whatever you think, it's like, okay, like a lot of what ifs, like what if Batman was back in the days of, you know, King Arthur, like the King Arthur type of stuff, what would happen? It's like, well, he would have this cool armor that looks like bats, and he would have like kind of bat, you know, like armor up on his headpiece, and it'd be really good. You could put Bruce Wayne in that kind of a situation. It could be you know, it could be the king in a castle, and the king is killed, and he's the son, and you know, all this stuff has to happen. And then what happens? Well, other people would be jealous of him, and then you could make all his villains like to be either rival knights or rival kingdoms. It's like, okay, and then what would happen? It's a way to build on top of your ideas. And if you ask yourself those questions, writing the story becomes pretty easy.
Hi guys, we're back. We're with different quotes. Why? Because last night I had a little record issue, but that's okay. That now it's okay, and we will pretend that nothing happened. So, hey Jill, okay, let's go to the next question.
Okay. What was another question?
Yeah, we were talking about the Wonder Woman, the true Amazon. Here it is. And I have to ask, how was the experience of make this character? That is one of the most important superheroes that exist, and being able to tell in your shape with your watercolor her origin, you know, in your really way.
I have to say that being able to write and illustrate Wonder Woman, the true Amazon, and return to that character, that was the very first character I worked at DC Comics, was an incredible honor. I was especially glad that I just got to create this little fable / fairy tale that has nothing to do with the continuity that stands. I like to create things that stand alone, but also because I was creating something that was outside of continuity and just was like my interesting take on it. I pretty much was left alone. So I got to do what I wanted and illustrate and just kind of put my stamp on her for a little bit. That I'm not sure exactly what else to say, except that it was really a treat to be able to do that. And it's one of the things that I'm the most proud of that I've ever done. I love it. And, you know, I hope that it touches people and it resonates.
It's a beautiful history.
To her character, you know, like it puts her in like a different origin slightly, but it sets her up at the same type of thing when she leaves Paradise Island or Themyscira and comes to the man's world. She still has the same focus. That's really nice. I really enjoyed this history. I read I think 4 months ago. It was just recently. So and I really enjoyed it, and it was this that I already liked your work, but I had nothing. I didn't
read nothing. And when I read it, I said, okay, I will interview her because I want to talk about it, you know, and I really liked it. So, and about Scary Godmother, that this is another work that I didn't read, but it turns into a cartoon, right? My question's about it. So, okay, you did this work that is Scary Godmother in Portuguese, how it is? I don't remember.
I think it's Bruja Madrina.
Yeah, it's something like Madrinha Bruxa.
I might
Yeah.
not be pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah,
but
Bruxa Madrinha.
BRUXA.
Do you have the
So,
Portuguese edition?
There is a Portuguese edition. Wait, I might even have it. Hold on.
Okay.
I know it exists.
Okay.
Where is it?
There's no problem if you don't found.
I do know it exists because in Spanish it's Bruja, and then when I got it, this one is an X.
X, yeah, Bruxa Madrinha. Yeah, it's probably this.
And I usually keep all of the foreign editions of everything that I have had done.
In Portuguese, I guess it's Minha Madrinha Bruxa. That is my godmother, witch, my witch godmother.
Okay, yeah. That's kind of the same. But I know I have one of those.
No, that's okay.
Saw it. I have to rearrange my bookshelf.
There's no problem. But okay, I want to talk about this. This work turns into a cartoon. So I think that is a big honor that because you made it. So how was the feeling? How was the feeling of seeing this turning into a cartoon?
Well, a little back history about Scary Godmother. When I created Scary Godmother, I had done one book. When my first niece was born, I wanted to be her godmother. And when I first thought about it, I dressed a lot more goth than I do now.
Yeah.
So I always had like my black motorcycle jacket, which I still wear, but I was always wearing black skirt, black pants, black everything. And I thought about me standing in the back of a Catholic church dressed in all my black, and I thought, oh, I'd be a pretty scary godmother. And when I said those words out loud, I saw this little fairy in my head, and I started to draw her. And at first she was little, like a Tinkerbell style fairy. She didn't look much different, but she had all black eyes, like on the inside, like Brian Froud fairies, and a bit spookier. And then the second version I drew her, she looks pretty much like she does now with Bugaboo, but Bugaboo was littler and he had chicken feet, which was weird, but I changed him. So I did that book, and then it got optioned. And in between the time it got optioned and when we actually made the show, I did lots of other books. And I also did many comics of her. And all of those are collected into one big volume from Dark Horse at this point. So it's got, it's like this thick.
Yeah.
But in the middle of all of that, there was a local children's theater in Chicago that contacted me about doing a stage play.
Cool.
So I went from doing, and I worked with that theater company, and we put on, we mounted a production, and we put together the Scary Godmother play, and we did 26 performances of it. And it was then that we had a video of. And finally, at one point, when the animation company that had optioned the show, we sent them that video, and we're like, we don't know what the big problem is, trying to sell this. We just had 26 sold out performances of this show. So then they hired the director of that of the play and myself to adapt our play as a 1-hour TV special. And then they started to make that special. So it went from my books to the stage to then the television screen.
Nice.
And, I ended up working on the animated specials, both of them, contributing storyboards and background art, and working constantly with the director there, Zeke Norton, to create you know, the best adaptation we could of my work. And the best part about when we created that, so the very first one had not been bought by any television company, you know, like, but it wasn't bought for like showing on television. So we were just making it. I was the person that they had to, that was the client, you know, so I felt it was it was very true to both my books and the show, because you didn't have executives from a network coming in and telling you what you should or you shouldn't do. It was like, let's just make this the coolest, fun thing that we can do within the budget that we have, which was a very small budget. And I am still so incredibly proud of that. I learned so much while working on it about, you know, the process. I really was happy to, I, you know, worked at the voice record, flew to Vancouver a few times to work with the animators.
Nice.
And then eventually be there for both voice records. The second one, which was the Revenge of Jimmy that we adapted, it's a funny fact now, but the actor Alexander Ludwig, who was in Vikings and Hunger Games, and who's on Heels at Stars, he's like a big, tall, good looking, you know, leading man. He was Jimmy. He did the voice of Jimmy. It was like his first job.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it was really funny because I didn't realize that, you know, but my nieces freaked out when they, you know, when they finally saw him, they, you know, because they liked him as he grew up, and then they searched him out on IMDb and they saw that his first acting credit was in Scary Godmother, and they all texted me saying, Aunt Jill, why didn't you tell us you knew Alexander Ludwig? And I'm like, why do I know that name? Like, he played Jimmy in Scary Godmother. And then all I thought of was, you mean that little boy who, oh yeah, his mom, like, I remember, you know, rubbing his head when he was doing the voice acting, and then his mom was there, and we all had pizza for all the kids that were doing voices, and all the actors that were there, like, because some were older and some were adults. But I was like, oh yeah, I was like, what does he look like? That's a few years ago. And I looked, and I was like, oh my God. Look at him. I'm so proud of him. He's you know, like superstar around the whole world.
That's really nice. That's really nice.
It was such a cute little thing.
Yeah, that's really nice. And Jill, to our last question, let's go to this. Zoom is talking me that we have 6 minutes, so it's a simple question, but okay, today will work. You worked a lot with Beasts of Burden, that is a really beautiful comic book. So my question is simple, you know, what was the most beautiful page or panel you made for these comics of Beasts of Burden?
Oh wow, Beasts of Burden, I love it so much. That comic is very emotionally draining to do. I always ask Devin, can we please just do a story where they all get to go to, you know, the store and get dog treats, or they go to the beach and go swimming or something. And so it was there was a the fourth story that we did was called A Dog and His Boy. And it was about Ace, the husky, who is probably in your volume, he's called a different name. But the husky, they find a young boy in his doghouse who's been obviously beaten or comes from an abusive home, and he is of Native American descent, and they, you know, but you know, they kind of adopt each other, take care of each other, but awful things happen, as they usually do in Beasts of Burden, or some supernatural things happen. And there's a scene that I draw, it's 2 pages, and it made me cry while I was working on it. And I cried a tear into the page, which has, like, there's a little thing that happens when you do watercolor. If you introduce salt onto the watercolor, it makes this little bloom because it sucks the water away, and then it creates this flowery edge onto the watercolor. So because there's salt in your tears, when I cried onto the page, like one big drop fell down, there was this watermark that looked like a little flower on the page. And whenever people would ask me, you know, what's this book like? Should I read it? And I would give them a copy and tell them, you know, read it. If this story affects you the way it affected me, you know, then you can come back and buy it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you know, then, you know, you can return it and I won't expect you to pay for it.
Yeah.
Everyone would come back and go, oh my God, I love this. Is there more? So that's my favorite. It's not the most elaborate page that I've done because there are other things that I've worked on. There's a scene where all of these frogs are falling out of the sky on the dogs. And I like that too. I can always pick out lots of things from that comic that I like, but as far as emotional, important stuff, that one, In a Dog and His Boy, because Ace is my favorite. Well, they're all my favorite, but it's like I feel protective of all those dogs that don't exist in real life. And now when I see dogs like that out when I'm walking around, people are walking their dogs, I'm like, hi Ace, hi Whitey, hi Pugs, you know, it's like, hi Jack, they're all my dogs.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really nice. I love dogs. So you know, I didn't read yet Beast of Burden 2, so I'm a really poser, but you know,
well, now if you when you read it, I don't know, is there a Portuguese version of it from Brazil?
Yeah.
Okay, what is it called?
The Beast of Burden is the same name.
Oh, okay, same title. Okay, well, if you read it and tell me, you know, message me back and tell me what happens when you read that story, and I will do a little sketch for you if it makes you have the same emotions that I did.
I will. So I will read. So, oh my God, Jill, thank you so much. It was a great interview. It was great talking to you. And I will read Beast of Burden the next month. Just let me work a little bit to receive my money and I will buy it. So thank you so much for coming. We have 1.5 minutes. So in this time, say to guys when the people can find you in your social medias, and that's it.
Well, my best social media to find me would be on Instagram at the Jill Thompson. Also, I'm on TikTok, same at the Jill Thompson. I exist on Twitter the same way at the Jill Thompson, but I really am not on. I haven't been on Twitter for like a very long time. I still have an account there. I find I like the other medium better. And Twitter got real mean for a while, and it was like very exhausting. So Instagram and TikTok, mostly what I did was I was putting up little painting videos. But Instagram, you'll be able to see art, a lot of stuff with my cat, lots of food that I make. Mostly that's more about my entire life. So,
okay, that's good.
But it's fun. I would love to see you all there.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Jill. Thank you so much, guys. And let's finish because Zoom will kick us. Thank you so much, Jill. See you. Okay. Thank you so much. I will send you the link when I post it. Okay. Thank you. Bye, guys.